Magandang hapon, Tess. We're now our third episode today.
Yeah, look at that. Welcome. Welcome to our viewers. Pinoy
Yeah,
Homes
so
Canada. Here we
I
are.
know. Welcome to Pinoy Homes Canada.
Yes.
Hopefully, people can take away something from our conversations
Yeah.
about real estate in here in
I hope
Canada.
they can find value. Yeah.
So for today, I wanted to touch on the introduction of the 30-year amortization for new builds. Just to clarify, prior to now, it's for in what we call insured mortgages, meaning ang insured mortgages is anytime that you put less than 20% down payment, it has to be insured by one of the insurers in Canada, default mortgage insurers. So that's
Right.
CMHC, Sagen, and Canada Guarantee. Before that, ang maximum na amortization is 25 years for this
Right.
type of mortgage. Um, effective August 1st, 2024, they introduced 30-year amortization. So what does that mean to our consumers, right?
Right.
uh, it means that when you stretch out an amortization from 25 years to 30 years, you're able to qualify a slightly higher mortgage,
Higher. Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
there are pros and cons to it. Uh,
Yes. I am aware of
so
that.
yeah,
Yes.
so the
And
definite pro is like getting into be able to get into the market now, right? Because now you have a lower monthly payment, you can qualify for a slightly higher mortgage, which is a good thing, right? Now you become a
right.
homeowner faster. The con is the
You're
interest,
paying.
right?
Yeah. You're
Mhm.
paying higher
The interest that's
interest.
accumulating, there's more interest with a longer term, right? So that's the basic thing. Pero for you to qualify for this, I just want to outline a couple of things. So this is only available for first-time home buyers. And ang definition ng first-time home buyer is you haven't owned a property under your name for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So let's say you were a homeowner before, let's say 10 years ago, you ended up selling it. Tapos you've been renting for, a few years. So you can qualify again as a first-time home buyer for this specific program.
That's really good to know because a lot of people don't know that.
Mhm.
Some of the
Yeah,
people that
because you
I've
just
met,
think that, oh, I've owned a home before.
yes,
Ngayon, I
and
cannot
they're like,
qualify for this, right?
oh, they would assume that, they're no longer qualified for first-time home buyers because they already
Mhm.
purchased one prior.
Actually, there's one thing I do want to clarify. Kasi I think there's a big confusion kung ano ba yung benefits of being a first-time home buyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
The main thing is, you can draw from your RSPs with a first-time home buyer withdrawal. That's one. There are benefits in terms of getting a credit that's for land transfer taxes. Pero yung the ability to be able to pay less than 20% down, that's actually not tied to being a first time home buyer. And I think that's a big misconception that is
That's
out
right.
there.
Yeah.
It's actually tied into it to the property that you're buying being a principal residence. Okay,
Tama.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
so that has
maraming
not.
tama ka. Yeah.
Because I always
Ma-
get that. It's like, oh,
I
but can I
know.
buy with less down payment? I'm like, yeah, because it's not because you're being a first time home buyer. It's because it's going to be your principal home. That 20% down is a typical requirement for an investment slash
That's
rental
right.
property.
So basically, if you have two properties, the first one, you can put in as low as 5%
As low
down
as
payment.
5%.
Now, if you're buying a second property, you cannot. You cannot put in 5% minimum. The minimum, I believe, is 20%, right? Because it's a
Mhm.
rental property or investment property.
Yeah, this is the one thing I wanted to clarify. Pero kung bibili ka ng another principal residence and the current one that you're living in
You
is going to
switch
be
it.
the rental
Yeah.
property, like you're switching,
Yeah.
then you can put as low as 5% on that property, the new property you're buying.
So, yes, that's a very good point, actually. So,
Mhm.
repeat it again, Pau. I don't think, just in case you didn't get that, because it's really, even for me in the beginning, I was confused with that. Like, oh my God, you can actually, switch it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, because some people upsize, right?
yeah,
So just to clarify again, the idea of buying with less than 20% down with a 5% or 10% down payment has to do with the property that you're buying to be your principal residence. So
mhm.
if you're upsizing, let's say, and then you want to keep the current property that you're in, yun ang if flip mo to be a rental, the new property technically you can put as low as 5% down, right?
That's
So
very,
just to
yeah, that's
clarify,
clever.
because I
Clever
know that
strategy.
yeah, I know it's confusing, but
Yeah.
but a lot of people, what they do is they do put more on the new property. The reason for that is because now that you're buying a new property and that's going to become your principal residence, yung current property mo is going to become a rental, and
Right.
then when you're writing off expenses because it's a rental, it can offset the income of the rental property. So ideally, your higher mortgage should be on the rental
Right.
for tax purposes.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, and you
So
can
yeah.
pass that on. If it's a rental, you can pass that your mortgage payments to your tenants, right? And
Mhm.
that's why people buy this investment property. They're renting it out to, well,
So
some
yeah.
of
So
them
with
not to make profit eventually, but to to buy something that they can, that will eventually increase value,
increase in value.
and yeah, and then passive
Well,
income, right?
to a lot of people that do it, which like personally, I've invested in, it
Yes.
almost becomes your retirement money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good way to put aside money. And let's face it too, from seeing a lot of people's finances, a lot of Canadians are dependent on the equity in their home for
Mm-hmm.
retirement because
Right.
it's kind of, it's not, I don't know the actual statistics on it, but it's just what I see every day.
You
Not
will,
a lot of
yeah.
people you're gonna find with, you know you probably need 500,000, $1 million by the time that you retire to be able, if you're totally not working, right, to fund the next, 20 years of your life after retirement.
Right.
Not a lot of people have that $1 million outside of their home. That's the reality of it,
No.
right? So a lot of
Yeah.
people either downsize or you move somewhere, that you're selling your house, you're taking the money, and then you're living in another property that's way cheaper.
Let's face it, we need a place to stay, right?
Hmm.
So, I mean, if your rent is in a high bracket, and if it's something that's similar to what you're paying for mortgages, and if you can afford it, why not just purchase, a property and start with a condo, something small, and then you work your way up. At
Hmm.
least it's I mean, real estate it's one of the safest long term investment, so you have to
Hmm.
keep it at least 3 to 5 years in order to see the appreciation value, because a lot of people are just looking at the short term. You can't just buy one right now today, for example, and then sell it next year. You're gonna have a
Well,
loss.
yeah, like
I mean, yeah.
to your point, it is a long-term investment that, it, like a lot of investments are actually that, any investment that's profitable is more for the long term.
Long term,
Even if you
yeah.
talk about stock investing, you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to find something that it's a 6 month or a 1 year term, right? A lot of those shorter term investments are going to be more, cashable. You're talking about GICs, you're talking
Yeah.
about, high interest savings accounts. But if you want something that has, close to maybe a double digit return, or
Yeah.
like a
Higher
7
return.
8%, you're
Yeah.
looking at the high yielding investment are more for long term.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah.
So yeah,
Totally
so just
agree,
going
yeah.
back, so this introduction of the 30-year amortization is only for new builds. It was effective August 1st, so this month. It's only for first time home buyers, and it's applicable when you are doing like what we call a high ratio mortgage, which is the less than 20% down,
Less than
and
20.
it's going to be insured by an insurer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the main thing, like I said, overall I think it is a positive thing because it allows you to invest in the market earlier,
Mm-hmm.
with this 30-year amortization. Keeping in mind, I know I said that the negative and or the con is overall interest, with the duration of your mortgage is going to be higher, but anytime that you have more money, you can do
Yeah, you can mediate.
prepayments.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can do prepayments, you can shorten the amortization, like, by
You
doing those prepayments, or upon renewal
do lump
you
sum
can,
too at the end of the year, right?
yeah. So yeah, you can talk about, like, most more lenders can do 15 to 20% lump sum payments a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be straight to principal, and then you don't, like that 30-year amortization can be shortened to like 25 years or 20 years depending on how much you're putting down.
Exactly.
And also upon renewal, you don't have to just continue with a 30-year and then, after 5 years it down to 25. If by that time you have more cash flow, you
Yeah, you're
can
in a
then say, you
better.
know what, I can pay this in 15 years. So
Exactly.
you're not married to that whole 30-year amortization. It just allows you to get into the market sooner.
You can change it anytime once you're in a better financial, status. And one thing great about this is that, it also helped builders build new homes, right?
Mhm.
Which in turn, target more buyers to come in, especially the millennials and Gen Z to get into the housing market. So it increases the housing affordability and supply because, as you know, we're really
Well, really,
there's a huge shortage
yeah,
in
I think
housing here.
this is the government's way to incentivize, like you said, builders as well to
Yeah.
build. That's why they made it specifically for new builds, because there's from what I know, I don't know the actual numbers in terms of housing starts. I think there's been a delay because of the market. So think about it. If you're a builder right now and the market has slowed down and you know that a lot of people are not buying, you're not going to be encouraged to keep building, right? Which we need right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but
I think, yeah.
because we're
Sorry.
in the topic of new builds,
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to just kind of talk about the pros and cons of new builds. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and we're like, what's your experience with new builds?
I bought new builds too before. So and that
Mhm.
was like way back and that was fine. But recently
In terms for your buyers, do you tend to go
I didn't
resale
have
or new
I'm
build
focused more on I focus more on resale. I haven't
on
done
resale?
builds recently. I
Mhm.
believe I actually had one 2 years ago. That's the one in Kingston. This time though, there's no traffic in condos, and the interest rate really has something like a lot to do with it. The interest rate is way too high for buyers to come out and buy something. Right now, a lot of buyers right now are just staying on the sideline and waiting for the rates to substantially go down. So I mean, we're heading to the right direction, but we're not there yet. So we're probably gonna see changes later. More buyers probably gonna come on and look at or buy pre-construction if the rate is it's a lot less because
A lot less.
before it was so busy before, like in the last few years when the rate was in 2%, between 2 to 3. It was like crazy. It's like you should see, like you've seen it yourself, right? Like the
Mhm.
lineup was long,
Yeah,
grand
I
opening and everything. But now, basically, the builders are throwing a lot of incentives out there, and still
mhm,
nothing.
nothing.
And I,
I I'm I definitely was a big promoter of new
yeah,
builds. I
new builds,
personally
yeah.
have bought a lot of kind of new construction properties
Mm-hmm.
between condos and like actually like I think a semi-detached. I
Mm-hmm.
bought one in Guelph, and I buy it from the plans, right? Just because at that time, so we were talking
Yes,
about 5 to 10 years ago, or I don't
it's
even
all
know
about the
now.
market we're in. You
It's
have
all
to
about the
like
market.
adjust. Yeah, you have to
You
adjust
have
the
to adjust
way. Yeah.
you have to adjust the way you're investing based on
Yes.
what the market is
All right.
dictating, right?
Yeah.
So at that time, why I was a big I'll give you the reasons why I was a big promoter of new builds, because at
Mm-hmm.
that time the way they were pricing new builds, you have still a margin of profit. But now what I'm finding in, let's say, in the
Exactly.
last
Yeah.
2 to 3 years, the values of what they're selling now based on plans is, $50,000, $100,000 more than what you can buy in the current market as a
Yep.
resale.
They have already increased it three,
They've
four
increased
years
it.
from now. And
They've
that's the reason why
almost
people buy them,
they've almost
right?
anticipating the future
They
value.
have. They have actually. That's how they priced it.
Mhm. So
So what's
that's
the
the
point?
problem.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. And then when you have a downturn in the market like we do right now,
You can't catch up.
then you're not seeing those values. I
Yeah.
have a recent client that bought, I think, a 615,000 one bedroom in Scarborough, 460 square feet property. That's what they bought it in 2019 or 2021.
615 for 460.
660 square feet. So the concern now is the appraisal is not going to come back at that value, and then the
Oh no.
financing is going to fall through, right? Because there's a lot of inventory right now. Um, so yeah, so there's ways around it. I think certain lenders have a blanket appraisal on certain
Mm-hmm.
properties,
Yeah.
so that kind of helps because they don't have to individually appraise the properties. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I think has been happening is builders, or sorry, some lenders that is assigned to that specific building have a blanket appraisal, so they
Mm-hmm.
kind of that's how they make the numbers work.
Yeah, because eventually, di ba, it's gonna the market's gonna get better. Like what's happening now at the end of the year, I'm sure it's gonna get better. Next year is, I think, economically, it's gonna be a lot better than this year and the year before, and that's why we're seeing this rate reduction, inflation going down, the rate reduction, and we're seeing more buyers. I'm seeing a little bit more traffic in the housing market, but not substantially. It's, especially in the condo
I
market,
think
it's
it's
still
gonna.
dead.
I think it's gonna be a slow recovery.
Yeah, it is. It will
Getting
take
back
time.
into there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're probably looking at hopefully 6 to 12 months that we're in a more of a balanced market as opposed to a buyer's market, right?
So it depends. It's a buyer's market for condos, but I'd say for
For detached right
freehold,
now, or freehold, yeah,
freehold, it's mostly it balanced,
it's
and
balanced. Okay, okay.
in some areas it's also sellers still.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's just that it's really, really slow. It takes 25 days to sell or more, right? But condos right now,
The funny part about
there's
that, the funny part about that is we say that 25 days is a slow market, but realistically,
I
that's not
know
too bad.
that's not too bad.
We're so used to the market where it's
That's
like
the average, by the
it's
way.
3 days or seven
Oh,
days, right? It's
or
sold. So
24 hours before it hits,
24
like,
hours, yeah.
yeah, because it happened to me 3 times during seller's market. It was before it hits the market, somebody already purchased the property I was going to list the next
Mhm,
day. It was purchased, and 24 hours. It happens to a lot of realtors.
mhm,
That's COVID time.
mhm.
We're not, yeah, now it's back to reality, right? So this
Yeah.
is what we're faced right now. It's more
So yeah.
difficult to sell condos. You really have to price it right the first time,
Mhm.
especially the first 2 weeks is crucial. If it stays in the market for a while, well, it's
Yeah,
not going to do you
because
any
the
good.
tendency is the buyer, once you see, because it is public information how long it's
Hmm.
been on the market. So as a buyer, you're going to be like, okay, this place is not selling. I'm going to try to bargain, right? So
Exactly. Well, yeah,
it's
I would do the same
marketability.
thing. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's the
no,
first thing
we
that you
all
would
would,
think.
right?
Yeah,
We all would.
exactly. Why is it not moving? Something wrong with the property,
I
or
know. And now, or the seller is going to be desperate. So let me put in a lower offer, right?
yeah,
So you have to keep, like, I definitely agree that price is very important. And if it's not moving, it's either you're going to make a decision at that point, right? It's either,
yeah,
am I gonna take it out and I have the ability to just wait till, let's say, 6 months from now,
yeah,
or you're
'Cause-
going to adjust on the current price of,
yeah.
of the market.
Exactly. It's really tough for a realtor sometimes, because when you're trying to present what's the statistics on what's going on in the market, like all those comparables, a lot of sellers they don't listen. They think because they think this is how, like, they have this number in their mind, and they just go with that. They don't care about what the statistic says, right, about the market.
Mhm.
And so it's so difficult, and so a lot of realtors will just give in. Okay, we'll price it at your number, but then next time, it's been there for, like, on the market for 30 days. Is like, obviously there will be nobody, like, looking at it, or um, booking to look at the
To
property, because
see
it's
it.
just way, it's too expensive, right? And
Mhm,
that's how when no one is looking at it, that means your price is too high.
mhm,
So you gotta change the price. Alam ko, yung ibang sellers, hindi sila nagmamadali,
mhm.
because they always say, we're
So
not in a
that's the
rush.
thing.
That's
If
fine.
you're not in a rush,
Yeah,
that's
that's
okay, right?
fine.
But you have to
But
have a realistic expectation of, given this market, if you're
yeah,
kind of just trying to see, it's like, okay, if it sells, it sells, but I have the ability to carry this till whenever, then
yeah,
yeah, price it to however you want.
they're not
But if
motivated.
you're
They just,
expecting, or if you want to sell it because you're looking at buying another property, then you have to
then,
kind of see what the market is
yeah,
telling
you
you,
gotta look
right?
at the statistics. Yeah, because
Mhm,
I always tell my clients, like, we don't make this up. This is the number, and this is what's sold right now, and this is the number you want. It doesn't match, right?
mhm,
They see, though. They see, because there's no traffic, so that's how they know. And it's just too bad, because you could have sold it at an earlier time at a higher number. Because the
mhm.
longer it stays in the market,
The
the home
tendency
prices
would be
starts to
you're
go
gonna get.
down, because
Mhm,
it's become, it's stale now. It's been there, and even if there's nothing wrong with the property, and it's gorgeous and it's well presented and everything,
mhm. Well,
the buyers think
timing.
otherwise, right?
Well, the
So
timing definitely factors in, right?
yeah, big time.
Into
Yeah.
the whole situation. But yeah, so just going back to in terms of because this program of the 30-year amortization for the new builds or new construction is specific to brand new properties, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to kind of have like kind of things to watch out for when you're
That's right.
buying new build, because there are things to definitely watch out for. It is different altogether. I think a lot of people just kind of sign thinking that, oh yeah, like everything will work out. But I'm finding clients now in this downturn in the market that suddenly cannot get financing. And then, and it is a very serious thing. Like
It
other
is,
people don't
yeah.
understand. It's like the best case scenario is you lose your deposit. That's the best case scenario.
I've
And
seen
people
so
have to
many
understand that.
cases like that recently. Some of them are my clients.
Mhm.
100,000, 150. I think they've done different, all the resources out there, but nothing. So at the end
But
of the day, they have to say bye-bye to their money, just like that.
yeah. But like I said, that's kind of best case scenario, because if the builder really, because you've signed a contract, right?
Yeah, they could sue you
So
too.
they can sue you and
Yeah.
ask for the whole amount, regardless
Yes.
of what, right? But I
Yep.
don't know if they're going that route yet. I don't know if I've heard much that they're doing that. So I'm not too sure. But yeah, but again, you're losing 50,000, 100,000. That's not great, just because that deposit is
That's a lot of money.
definitely, you already gave that to the builder.
Yes,
So they're
exactly.
taking that if you cannot
Yes,
close, right?
they will.
So
Yeah.
make sure be careful. Uh, so I have a couple of things to watch out for when you're buying new build. One is, the number one I would say is, if you're buying a pre-construction property, I would compare the value of what the resale is for a comparable property. If
Hmm.
there's that big of a margin, I would probably not stay away from it, or sorry, stay away from it, because what if the market drops like it has right now, right? So
Right.
be careful, like, kind of calculate the price per square footage again. And also, this is maybe this is more towards the new condos. I don't know if, like, what the price difference is. Actually, I don't know if you would know in terms of freeholds. Are they pricing it that much higher? Because I know, for specifically for condos, because I just bought and sold a condo, right? So I
Mm-mm.
know kind of that market. I don't know how it is for freeholds. Are builders pricing? There's a big gap of the new builds to what's currently on the market.
I actually haven't checked recently, but the ones that I've seen before is almost the same. Like, it's pretty much like, in line. And the resale, you already have it and you can always like rent it out, right? It's right
Mhm.
there. With pre-construction, it's not done yet and anything could happen. Like, there's so many unforeseen like events that could happen, right? You
Mhm.
like, it could, the builder could go bankrupt, then it's not going to be done, or there's like lots of delays. That always happens. It happened
Mhm.
to mine before with my condo. Happens a lot. And
I think it depends
uh,
what you're buying it for, right? If you're buying as a principal residence, you want to
exactly.
live in it, then yeah, definitely those kind of things you have to watch out for, right? But if you're buying for an investment, sometimes the delays is not a bad idea, because you're just kind of put your deposit down, and then it's
Wait.
ideally, in an ideal
Yeah.
market, it's appreciating in value, right? But yeah, definitely those things are things. There are a lot of things to watch out for. That's why my next point that I wanted people to watch out for is the additional fees when it's new construction.
Right.
What I actually do, and what I would recommend everybody to do, is definitely make sure that your lawyer is reviewing the purchase and sale agreement.
100%.
and
100%.
and if you're able to, there's certain things that they're gonna have additional this, additional that. If you can negotiate with the builder that to cap certain fees, because, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of these fees are typically with what the municipality is adding on uh, for their construction, right? Because I remember, I think I've seen a couple of lines on a contract on mine, and I asked my lawyer, I'm like, how much can they add? And the way it's worded on the contract is, it's pretty much unlimited.
Yeah, there's room for adjustments. They
Yeah,
can
there's room
increase.
for
Yeah,
adjustment,
decrease.
that if the municipality tells them, okay, you have to pay this extra for building this or whatnot, you have to, it has to be out of pocket. So what I did on mine is I put a cap. I believe it was
Mm-hmm.
3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
So that's
builder
a
signed back.
maximum.
So at least that allows me to, okay, the worst case scenario is you're gonna add another 3,000.
Yeah.
So, but
Even
yeah,
if
so
you
make sure
allot for
you're
that, say, 3,000 max, then you know already that you
Mhm,
can cover it. That's a good
mhm.
point. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
So definitely get your lawyer to review it, and then if you can cap certain things that they can add on, definitely get your lawyer to revise the contract, the purchase and sale agreement, and then get the builder to sign it. And in this market, in a buyer's market, like you can definitely negotiate, right? If it's seller's market, some
100%.
builders
Yeah.
might not be. If it's a really hot property, you might not be able to. You just have to sign it if you want it that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure you discuss it with your lawyer.
All right.
Um,
There's a lot of documents too for pre-construction.
mhm,
So it needs to be it needs to be reviewed by the lawyer before you make a decision, right?
mhm. And
Yeah.
another thing, the next thing is I would also when I buy new construction, I also think about my return on my investment.
Mm-hmm.
So for a condo, typical condos you have to put 20% down. So if you're buying, uh, you know, a $500,000 property and you have to spend 20% down, that's 100,000. So you have to account for your expected growth of that property, and also is it making that much money? Because right now you're 100,000 a year. If you can find investments out there that's making you 5%, you're losing 5,000 a year on that $100,000 deposit that you put in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of factor those in on the type of investment
Yeah.
you're reviewing. Um,
Exactly.
that's why to me, I actually, if you can definitely, if your price range is only the condos, try to jump in the market. But if you have the ability to get a freehold, because typically the freeholds, uh, the townhouses, the semis and whatnot, like you can actually put 5-10% on some of them, right, under
Now
the
I'm
hood.
seeing it, but the standard is 20%. So I always like I mean, I'm seeing a lot more deals right now. Have they also give like you can also put in 10% only for freehold? Because I've always
Yeah,
seen like
I
20.
personally have. In the
Oh,
past, I
okay.
have. Yeah, I personally have. But
Yeah. And it's
you know,
payable within a year, right? Like as soon as you sign, I think the contract is
e-
5%, 1 month after 5%,
e-
3 or 6 months.
each builder is different, and
It's another
to some
5.
extent it's negotiable, but yeah, so typically within the first, you usually put a $10,000 deposit or 20,000, and then within 30 days you have to put the rest of the 5%, and
Yeah.
then you can
Oh,
do
okay.
after 90 days, 180 days, and then up the year you typically have to put whatever you agreed
Yeah. The
upon
full
as a
amount
deposit.
within a year. Yeah. So that's
So
something
yeah.
to think about. If you don't have enough like deposit within, like at the time that you sign the contract, you have until 1 year. But make sure that able to provide the rest of those in sequence, like what you said. The first 10,000. I mean, you can put in 10,000 or something, 5, 10.
5 ten
In
thousand
yeah, in 30 days, you have to actually fill up that or complete the 5% down
The
payment.
5%, that's
Yeah,
typically how they do.
yeah,
The next one is actually probably this should be number one, actually, is make sure you review your financing
yeah,
prior
that
to
is number
buying.
one. Yeah.
That should be number one, because you have to know that you'd be surprised how many people come to me, oh, my condo's closing, and then I review their finances, I'm like, you don't qualify for this mortgage. But I think, I don't know, because typically when you're buying new construction, you actually need to show a pre-approval, at least the
Yeah,
builders
that's
I've
what.
dealt with.
Yeah. I
Mhm,
did when I did mine. Like, yeah, you had to get your pre-approval, and
mhm,
then at the end of it, like before closing, the bank will get hold of you, and I think 1 month, 2, 3 months before, to make
mhm,
sure that everything is still in line with the initial pre-approval.
mhm.
Nothing has
Yeah,
changed
but
because yeah.
you'd be surprised. There are people. I'm not gonna say there's a lot, but there are people out there that
I
kind
was
of come up.
surprised because it happened to us with
Yeah,
one of
to
our
some of
deals.
our clients, and I'm kind of like, okay, well,
And you
what
were
are we
like,
gonna do?
we told you about not spending money and not getting a loan prior to closing. You could have
Hmm.
bought that car the day after we closed. The day after.
Yeah.
You could have just waited. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
So yeah,
that was
definitely
one
sort
deal.
out your financing. Make sure that you run the numbers, and then you can afford that property, because it's not just, some people think that, oh, well, they allowed me to put a deposit in, because it's your responsibility to know that you can get financing. So when you're buying new
That's
construction,
right.
I know it's not going to be due yet, but make sure you run the numbers that you can qualify for that mortgage.
Right.
because it's happening a lot more now, especially some of these values are not there, and then the appraisal has gone down. So it becomes more, that's another problem that a lot of people that are buying new construction are facing right now.
I think also the buyers should also talk to a trusted mortgage broker, or I mean the lender. Like, they have to be trusted because they're lenders, but a lot of mortgage brokers out there are not even like, they don't even know what they're talking about. They just don't have the experience. Like, at the end of the day, I've heard a lot of buyers like, oh, I thought we can afford this, and I thought you have been pre-approved, and they're like, yeah, but he just, then next time, they were just, it was just verbal, or it was on paper, but there wasn't really any
That's a very good
calculation
point.
involved. Yeah, like,
Make sure you have
that's
paper,
huge.
something that, you know
Yes.
what, I got pre-approved for this. As much as I'm also going to be the one to say a lot of pre-approvals are very, they're not
Informal.
final approvals, right? Because
Yeah.
they're not really fully underwritten. They're going to
Yeah.
go by what is on the application,
Yeah.
because the reason being is, if lenders had to spend money on somebody to review every file, and there's a chance that it's not even going to close, they don't have the resources, right? It's too expensive to
Yeah.
pay somebody, right? So a lot of pre-approvals are kind of an overview. So
Mm-hmm.
until it's about to close, then they review the documents, they review employment, but at least have that initial consultation that, you know what, based on my income today and my credit, these are the rough figures, and then I can qualify for a mortgage.
So don't you like ask for documents in order to look at those?
I do,
Because
some
yeah,
don't, right?
yeah, I
Because
know you do. That's why I love working with you, because
yeah.
you really scrutinize everything. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, keep in mind too, my background is underwriting. So I actually, for 3 years, I was the one approving the mortgage, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
know what they ask for. I know. So for my own sake, I don't want it. I'm going to approve you, and I'm going to figure it out later once we need the
Exactly.
financing. I
Yeah.
want to know now, right? So I
Yeah.
want to verify as much as I can now, so that it's less headaches for both me and you down the
Mm-hmm.
road, right?
That's what I want. I'd rather just put everything down right now, ask everything. So, because I know that my clients always tell me, "Oh, Paulo wants us to fill out the online application," and I said, "That's fine. Just fill out the application, and then whatever he asks you, just give it to him. The sooner you give it to him, the sooner I find out what you're afford, like how much you can afford, and then we can start looking for a place."
Mhm.
So, yeah. So that's good to know.
Yeah, as much as to some people, maybe it's like, oh, why are we asking about all of this now? It's better for you to kind of be prepared, because that's my normal practice. I sometimes I think that deters people because they don't want to go into that in depth of the application yet. But
Yeah.
it's for everybody's best interest, right? So nobody's
Mm-hmm.
wasting their time. They're not wasting their time looking for a property. They're not wasting the time of the realtor to go around, right? It's better to know what you really qualify for by verifying some of the documents.
Mas maganda yung
I
malalaman mo kaagad kung magkanong afford nyo yun, right? Kasi maraming mga tao na they think they can afford a lot more
Mhm,
without, kasi nga yung iba matataas yung mga sweldo nila, right?
mhm.
Pero nakalimutan nilang i-incorporate yung mga
Yeah, definitely. Mhm. Your other responsibilities, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, that's why you need to speak
And
to a
the hard
mortgage
part is,
broker.
I think the biggest misunderstanding too, like especially if somebody like had a good bonus, let's say last year, they're
Yeah,
gonna tell me, oh, I made 150,000. But when you're accounting for bonuses, you
it's a
have
different
to have
calculation, right?
consistency. You
Yeah.
have to have like was it the year before that? So you have to take the average. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not normal knowledge for a lot of people. They just know that they made that last year, but your mortgage professional is the one to tell you what you're gonna need to prove that income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to just get your send all of your documents, typically either your notice of assessment, your T4s, at least the last 2 years, to kind of support your income.
Mm-hmm.
When you have type of a variable pay, type of like bonuses, or mainly bonuses over time and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's very important, because a lot of buyers or even consumers doesn't know about that information. So
Mhm.
it's important to also keep your credit score high How? By paying your bills on time.
Mhm.
Really simple, right?
Yeah. So yeah, so just to sum that up, oh, actually, last point that I wanted to make was
Mm-hmm.
in terms of buying new construction, you have to think about the benefit for me is I see all of the financing end, right? So you cannot buy a property if not knowing if you can get financing. So just things to be aware of is it's harder to get financing for anything if it's a purpose-built rental property. Some lenders kind of stay away from that. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's more difficult to get financing. So just make sure that when you're doing a pre-approval, you kind of mention that so that they can actually look up the property, what the area, and some of them already have records in the back end of a specific
Okay, so the
property.
lenders would know even if the buyer forgot to mention it. If it's a
Um,
purpose built.
if it's purpose built, yeah, but like I said, they're not fully underwriting it, so you might have to tell specifically, hey, this is this property. Are we sure we're okay with that, right? Another thing would be the implications of buying under a holding company for investment,
Mm-hmm.
because the A lenders are not too fond of holding companies. Most of the ones that I've done are on the alternative financing, alternative lenders for anybody that's buying under a holding company.
Bakit?
There, sorry, it's just it's the liability, and even if you're buying as a holding company, you are always signing with a personal guarantee, right? So you have to evaluate if why you're doing the holding company. There are a lot of benefits for it. There's taxation benefits, to a certain point, liability benefits. But the problem is, like I said, you're signing with a personal guarantee as a director of that holding company.
Mm-hmm.
So there is still liability for you, right? So make sure
Right.
you're just doing all of your homework, because it is harder to get financing.
Okay. I guess it
Right.
opens up a lot of kind of worms like fraud and stuff like that.
Yeah, it could. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact reasons per se why the banks don't like it. Like from my point of view, it's just because there's a lot of, to directors, and
Exactly.
who's
Yun na nga.
responsible.
Yeah,
There can be a lot
exactly.
of turnover, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody can start as a director and then they're off, and then they're personally guaranteeing that. So there's a lot of that
Mas
as well.
tao. And
Iba-iba,
they,
yeah.
yeah, they don't know who to chase if
Mhm.
there's any issues, right? So yeah, it makes sense.
So yeah, so I think
So
that kind of wraps up our conversation for today in regards to. I just want to do a quick summary actually before we end this podcast. So when you're buying new construction, make sure you're comparing prices of the resale and the pre-construction or new builds, just to make sure that there's not a lot of kind of future value added
mhm.
to the new purchase that you're looking at buying. Get your lawyer to review the purchase and sale agreement. If you can cap those extra fees, make sure that your lawyer can add to the contract and get the builder to sign it.
Mhm.
Calculate what your return on investment is. If you're putting 20% down, what is your expectation that the value of this property. And
It's gonna
because
be
I literally, for myself, I have a spreadsheet of, what, 5 years down the road, this is the value, this is what it's costing me.
I
I
expect
could
that from
invest
you.
in this. It's the Virgo, right?
It's the Virgo.
It's the Virgo in us. So
You know when you know. We're both Virgos, by the way.
yeah.
That's why I just smile. I'm like, of course you would do that.
And yeah, the next one is make sure you review your financing options, get a pre-approval on that specific property, just to make sure there's no any red flags
Mhm.
once you need the financing. Uh, just be aware that some purpose-built rental buildings you can have a hard time getting financing, or also implications of buying under a holding company.
Mhm. At saka kung may mga tanong kayo, please, you're always welcome to,
Yeah,
direct message us. We're here to help you guys. That's why we have this Pinoy Homes Canada podcast to help everybody, especially Filipinos
mhm,
who are new in Canada.
yeah. Well, yeah, definitely DM us, make a comment. If you have any questions about your
Subscribe.
specific, yes, your specific situation, like we can address those for you. Okay, and
Yeah.
follow us, Instagram, TikTok, also subscribe on YouTube and Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Pinoy Homes Canada.
Yung mga hindi namin na-discuss, you can actually suggest what you wanted us to discuss next on the next episode. We'll Paolo and I will try to
We'll do
incorporate
our best to answer,
yeah,
yeah,
to talk
answer any
about it
questions
and answer.
and make that our next topic. Any
Right.
questions you guys have? Sounds
That's
good.
right.
Well, nice seeing you again, Tess. And until next
Likewise.
time, yeah.
Good talk.
Okay. Talk soon.
Yes. Yes.
Bye.